can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
What it be, what it do, Rob Log?
two, two. Check. Two, hello. Hello. Are you there?
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Happy Season 3 finale, everyone.
$10,000 sandwiches. Thanks for 35 months. Resub a tier 2. Thanks, 10,000 sandwiches. So many sandwiches. That's so many fucking sandwiches. Thank you. And thank you, Sam, as well. For 21 months, tier 1. No, I didn't take my kid to school like that. It's not, I intend to. When it gets to be cold enough. Not today, though. I intend to take him to school like this when it's cold enough, but we're not quite there yet. How is everyone doing? What is up?
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
3 years of subversive content. It's been fantastic to grow and learn with you all. Thank you, Rob, and thank you, chat.
Oh my, Netlocked. Thank you for 36 months of tier 1. Netlocked. I believe the very first community member. With the Pearl sub badge, the 3-year sub badge. Things are crazy right now. Apparently Yemen just declared war on Israel. Why not? Why not? Critical support to Yemen. I mean, it's pretty much uncritical support to Yemen, given what people in Yemen have been going through for the last 6, 7, 8 years. The Saudi bombing campaign, another ruthless U.S.-backed barbaric bombing campaign on the people of Yemen. I think that's uncritical support from me. I don't know what that says about you, Marty, that you're withholding support, but you know, that's for you to figure out for yourself. You know, is this the start of World War III? It's just I'm finished making those kind of predictions because I always think that it's the start of World War III. It's like my main thing. It's like one of my main things to talk about. I think World War III is starting, and that was like years ago that I started saying that. So who knows? World War I never ended. I mean, you could make a case that World War II never ended, you know? I don't know. Or World War III started in like 1949, you know? And really now it's just picking up in intensity. I don't know. Who knows? It often feels like the start of World War III and, you know, one of these days it's going to happen, you know, but I guess I'm just tired of making predictions over it. I'm weary as well. The slow ramp up. Yeah, it's just wait. I've talked about it before, you know, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Lawsuit, hey, what's up, Lawsuit? You don't think I should go outside like this? I mean, I'm not going to go outside right now because it's like 3 degrees right now. It's not really balaclava weather, but in the winter, believe you me, I'm going to be going outside like this plenty. This is my new look now. Not unless you want cops pulling you over. What? I thought we lived in a free country. I thought we lived in a free country where a man can wear a balaclava mask if he wants to. You know? What is this, Nazi Germany? Not yet, anyways. No, it's not the truth. The best analogy for climate change I've heard is that it's like a 15-passenger van headed for a cliff. Eventually the cliff kills everyone, but shit will get really interesting inside the van before that happens. We're all in the slow-motion van fall from Inception right now. And that's the crazy thing as well, is that is really going to intensify as the wars intensify, as the battle over resources intensifies, as the battle over hegemony intensifies. We're going to get this like massive increase, and the war is going to increase the emissions as well. So we're going to have a nice confluence of global conflict fueled by climate crisis, but also increasing the climate crisis exponentially as it goes on. That'll be fun. That's going to be great. Really looking forward to that, actually. The 30s. The 30s are going to be fantastic. My girlfriend is playing Spider-Man 2, and I was like, I wish Spider-Man was real because I'd start a balaclava company for villainous grunts and make $1 billion. Really, like, the economy in Spider-Man New York must be going well, because like there's a lot of work going around for like henchmen, grunts, thugs. You know? Like if you're a wannabe grunt or thug or henchman, there's no shortage of opportunities for you in the Spider-Man universe. They got to give good benefits, all the different crime bosses. You know? They probably have good, decent health plans, benefits, because it's like you got to compete. It's a tough market out there for henchmen. If you want a quality team of henchmen, you got to pay up. This is their gig economy, a hencher. You can go check hencher today and see which, what kind of henchman opportunities there are.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Is this new Rob?
Hello, Red Scary. Thanks for 34 months at Tier 1 and all the support. Yes, it is. It is new Rob. That's right. It's finally happened. Really, new Rob will be debuting tomorrow. Tomorrow's the season premiere. Tomorrow is the season premiere of TRRS Season 4. And see, we're already seeing some of the 3-year sub badges already, so I guess it's a good time for it. I've been working on editing together like a clip show. Have a little clip show tomorrow. You know what? And you should congratulate me for this. I'm a little overwhelmed right now. It's Halloween today. I got Halloween stuff tonight. I got apparently the season finale tomorrow. I had stuff I was working on. I was thinking about, should I just punt? Should I punt the season premiere to Friday or Monday even? Should I just punt? And then I said to myself, no. No, you're not punting. You've been saying for weeks now that season 4 premiere was Wednesday, November 1st. You can't punt now. So we're going ahead. Fuck it, we'll do it live. We don't punt, we go for it on 4th down. Even if you stand to humiliate yourself. Not even when it's 4th and close, when it's 4th and 10, when it's 4th and 12. We're going for it. Can't cancel the special guests. The analytics say go for it. I think I punted the last premiere for like a few weeks. It was not good. I had a lot of I had a lot of shit going on at that time, I'll tell you. That was a needed punting, okay? That couldn't be helped. Larry David said to just get rid of the field goals so they'd always go for it on 4th down. We're starting to see it more and more. I mean, that's kind of nice. The analytics were saying to punt on that one. That's my guys upstairs were telling me. They were like, no, you got to postpone this. Wish someone would punt my premiere. Been shitting up my province since election. Oh my. Nice. So this morning it's Halloween, obviously. And I helped my son get ready. I did his makeup and everything. He's the Joker. I think I did a pretty good job. I was a little nervous about it. He's Joker-fied. He was very happy. He was very happy with this. Why is he so serious? I don't know, Husker. What's up? You want to know how I got these scars? My father was a drinker and a fiend. One night, he goes off crazier than usual. Okay, we don't need to do the whole thing. We don't need to do the whole bit. Film a dancing downstairs scene. It's not the Joaquin Phoenix Joker, though. I haven't even seen that one. I haven't seen the Joaquin Phoenix Joker film. Is it good? I don't know. It got a lot of praise, hype. I thought it was interesting going in that kind of Scorsese influence direction. Taxi driver, king of comedy kind of thing. Obviously, it's not as good as Avatar 2. I mean, that goes without saying. And that goes without saying. It's like Taxi Driver, but far more disturbed, way more twisted. No, I didn't watch the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. No, I did not. No, I'm planning on going to see Killers of the Flower Moon on Saturday, I think. I think I'm going to go to the Palestine rally and then go to Killers of the Flower Moon afterwards. That's my tentative plan. I'm looking forward to that, though. Take care, Nedlock. Thanks again. Do we like the badge? What do we think? Do we like the 3-year badge? It doesn't stand out quite as much. I don't know if I need to make the text like colored or something. I don't know. It's got spunk for sure. Yeah. I think make the text a bit more spunky. Yeah. We'll see. Any thoughts on what the 4-year badge will be? I think the next is going to be 5. I think we're skipping 4. We'll see. I reserve the right to change my mind on that. Gold watch at 5. That's right. That's right. This is my promise to you. Anyone that gets a 5-year badge, when that day comes, I will personally send you a gold watch. I 100% guarantee. It's the Rob Rousseau promise. And if there's anything you know about me, I always deliver. I always deliver on those kind of promises. They call him the mailman. Yes, they do. Lots of people refer to me as that. I was going to say like Karl Malone, but I don't want to have anything to do with Karl Malone. No, it's because I was like, I'm putting together a little clip show for tomorrow. I guess maybe it would have made sense to do it today, but it takes a little work, okay? And I've been busy. I've been quite busy. I'm putting together a little clip show. And I was going through a lot of these old clips from the show. And around the time that I got my verification, like my partner, purple check, Monorail Bitch is in there. But around the time I was getting my verification, my purple check, I was like, I personally guarantee I will send every person 2,000 clout points. Just like Joe Biden. Just like the Democrats. I guarantee it. What former jazz great has worse politics, Carl or Stockton? I think Malone is a worse person, but Stockton has worse politics. I don't know if Karl Malone is that like politically outspoken. I'm sure he's a Republican, but it's more the contact with minors situation, I think, that is bad with him. Who's this mysterious streamer? No one knows. No one knows for sure. He's a practicing libertarian. Yeah, that's right. He spent his post-NBA career getting involved in the political sphere and tirelessly campaigning to lower consent laws. According to Stockton, 27,000 elite athletes have died because of the vaccine. That's crazy. Is that like an actual figure, Max? Because I honestly, it's so ridiculous that I can't tell if you're joking. No, okay. That seems high. Because even if you said like 200, like that would be high. That would be a high number of people. But it's like, no, we can go bigger. We can go bigger than that. Yeah, killed by a vaccine. Not that elite after all, I guess. I mean, I took the vaccine and I'm fine, so I guess I'm just built different from some of these jokers. Yeah, there are a lot. This is a good point, Marty. There are a lot more heart-related injuries that athletes are enduring, but whether or not it's actually the vaccine or, you know, the disease that studies have shown will, in fact, strain your heart. Exactly. Or a lot of respiratory illnesses as well. Respiratory issues. Raptors second-year player Christian Coloco is just like out indefinitely with like respiratory issues now. Stockton claimed to have proof that hundreds, if not thousands, of professional athletes have died. But like, I feel like that would be a bigger story, you know? I know the media has an ability to sort of cover up certain things and not talk about certain things and manipulate people, but like, that I feel would be a difficult thing to cover up. You know? Even if it was just 100, even if it was just 100 professional athletes, even that number would be like very difficult to get people to not talk about that. Colorado rich person has bad vax takes. That's actually well, I think he's still in Utah, isn't he? So it's a Utah rich person. It's almost like doing nothing with something about COVID may have helped a bit. That's right. Yeah, maybe we should have actually... All these people complain about all our lockdowns. Maybe we should have actually had a serious lockdown. Then we could have just not had to deal with the virus anymore. Then we would be okay. It could just go away. No, let's do it like this instead. Let's do it like this instead. And let's make sure everyone gets it. I think that's an even better way to do it. A functioning society is one where the elite officials continuously capitulate to a bunch of stupid, whiny babies. That's right, yeah. And if you just take those stupid, whiny babies and just, like, put them in re-education camps, that's bad and authoritarian to do that. If you make sure that you, like, take steps to make sure that they no longer have the incorrect ideas and have the correct ideas, you don't want to have that. Here's a way to sell it to gun freaks. Put an armed guard in front of everyone's house to make sure they stay inside. Yeah. We'll give government-mandated guns. We'll give you a government-mandated gun if you just stay inside for like a month. 6 weeks. We'll give you a government-mandated gun. We'll send you some food and groceries so you're alive. We'll make sure the businesses are just to remain open, you know, after they can pay their rent and everything before they go back to business. Stay inside for 6 weeks and shut up. Take your gun and shut up. You can come out and there's going to be no more virus. Why not? Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates personally buried the vaccine deaths in a mass grave. Yeah, but what about the mass graves of people that died of COVID? And like all the people, remember all the horrifying images of like freezers full of bodies and, you know, people getting mass buried and all kinds of people. And it's like, no, shh, 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 shh. Okay. Great. The orange man is gone. Stop thinking in the past. It's actually an interesting thought experiment to think about if Trump had not lost, and the vaccine had rolled out under Trump. You wonder if like people would have been more receptive to that. In fact, it probably would have been the Rachel Maddow libs that were going to not take it. I'm not taking that Trump vaccine. Turns you orange. I hate stop thinking about the past nonsense. I can and I will. Well, that was what Obama said when he took power, and people were like, hey, can you maybe do something about all the war crimes that happened with the previous administration? And he was just like, let me be clear. No, I cannot. Remember when this was Rob Rousseau's stream, not this mysterious figure? No, unfortunately, I don't recall that. I have no recollection of that, unfortunately. Yeah, sure, plenty of Cali libs started this anti-vax ship back in the day, for sure. The yoga crystal moms. California. All the crossover with those people in the QAnon types. The things you see with your eyes and smell with your nose are fabrications, but the wild hypotheses of the dumbest people on the planet are very real and effectively co-opted our government's response. Yep. That is right. That's how we do it. We're all so fucked with 24, man. Yeah, it's like, at this point right now, I don't see any way that the Democrats can win in 24. I don't know. Whatever like argument you might be able to make about lesser of two evils, which already is really tenuous with the way that they rolled back all those like COVID policies. They rolled all that back, like not even COVID protections, but like the meager, modest kind of COVID era welfare state that was erected and then rolled back. The foreign policy, like they're funding and helping genocide. Like there's so many people, and maybe it's anecdotal. I don't know. I don't know if this is a large number of people, but like there's lots of people, especially young people, being like, no, I'm not going to vote for these guys anymore. There seems to be a lot of people saying that. Maybe it's an anecdotal, I don't know, but you know, they passed the most historic climate legislation in American history, insanely low bar, but I guess you could say that, yeah, okay, they passed that climate legislation, and there's a few things, you know, but the thing is, like, giving big companies tax breaks to build factories in rural America to manufacture EV batteries and solar panels. Like, that's barely even a liberal policy. That's like a conservative policy. That's like a conservative or neoliberal approach to climate policy. You know? So that's the best you can hope for. You can vote for like a 80s Republican or a game show host. An 80s Republican who's doing genocide. I'm going to name you Bob Poirot. I kind of like that, actually. EVs are questionably useful for addressing climate change anyway. It's a subsidy for rich people's toys. Yeah, I mean, not exclusively. Like, if you have like a massive expansion in transit, both like locally and nationally, a massive unprecedented expansion into transit and make that free as well, and then in addition to that, you're making an effort to take the cars that are still on the road and make sure that they're electric, like, okay, then that's something, you know? That actually can maybe amount to something. But if it's just like no transit, we're keeping car culture, but some of the cars, a higher percentage than previously, are going to be electric. Like, no, that's not actually accomplishing anything. Democracy is when every couple years you get to pick one or two guys in a massive system designed for exploitation and extraction. Yeah, and you get to pick from one of the different factions of the team, who have all agreed behind the scenes to make sure that like this grotesque system of exploitation is continuing. But they have different little ideas and they have one is a blue guy and one's a red guy. Some of them might be less racist. Some of them might be like super racist. You know, some of them might wave a rainbow flag one time per year, and then someone might not do that. That's democracy, baby. It's me. I had you fooled. I had you all fooled. Remember when the Supreme Court took away abortion rights and the Democrats went outside and sang a song? Yeah, I remember when there was the largest mass protest movement in modern American history. Democrats put on kente cloth and did a kneeling photo op. Remember that? That was great. And racism was resolved. Racism was ended on that day. Racism was no one has ever been racist since that day. I mean, it was funny. I mean, we gotta give him that. Thank you, George Floyd, for giving your life. It genuinely is such an iconic photo. It really, like, not for any of the reasons that like they thought, but it's genuinely fantastic. Like, I like too how like Colin Kaepernick, the guy that like started the whole like kneeling thing, was blacklisted from the NFL despite being a totally capable NFL quarterback. The guy that started doing the kneeling thing was blacklisted and was never allowed to play in the NFL again. But then like, you have all these like NFL owners and like Democrats doing the kneeling thing to show their support for racial justice. What is the guy holding on the left? I think it's like a picture of George Floyd. Shout out to his family. My favorite part of this photo op was Nancy not being able to get back up and needing a few people to pull her up. I do not remember that, but that would be tricky for me too, and I'm only 40 years old. No, that's not Chuck Schumer. I'm not sure who that is. Oh, that's so bad. Shout out to his family was more respectful for this. Well, it's because like they're doing this while like the shout out to his family guy. What's the techno guy? What's his name? David Guetta. He's not capable of like doing anything to like end police violence, you know? He's just a DJ. He makes techno music and makes people dance. So yeah, these people actually have the ability to like pass laws. Like they can pass laws. They can like take money away from police departments. They can do things like ending qualified immunity. Lots of things that they could do to genuinely like try and do something about that very real and serious issue. And they're like, you know what, we're going to go ahead and not do that. But here's what we can do. Here's what we can do though. This. We can do this. And isn't that enough, really? Isn't that all you really need when you think about it? Do you really need to pass legislation? Change society in any way? The thing is, though, because they never tried to defund any of these police departments, these police unions, they love the Democrats, though, and now they campaign for Democrats. So that's a little thing called 4D chess, and some of the Johnny-come-latelys in the chat don't seem to understand that. It's called strategy. It's called strategy, sweaty. Now all these police unions and cops love the Democrats because they didn't defund them. Think, chat, think. They outsmarted all of us by giving police more money instead of less. I wonder if in hindsight any of these people are embarrassed. I don't think so. I think if you get to this level of like a political figure, you're just a mutant. You're just a lizard. Like you don't have the capacity for embarrassment. Like if you have capacity to like be embarrassed or like feel bad about what people say about you, then you can't be in this position. Police unions absolutely love acting like they got defunded, even though that never happened. That's right. Cops will totally be out there for Biden this time. Mark my words. That's right. It's funny about like Biden trying to do the whole like trying to appeal to be Mr. Israel as well and going to hug Netanyahu, the corrupt authoritarian war criminal, while Netanyahu is in the process of like bombing Gaza into the ground and killing thousands of people. Surely all the big hardcore Zionists will really love me now. They all love Trump. They can't wait till Trump is back in office. They love Trump. Like they're not now supportive of Joe Biden. I've actually been answering the calls when the police unions call for fundraising and talking to the people about how what they're saying is dead wrong. It leads down some fun rabbit holes. So did that happen? Do police unions call and like ask for money? That is insane. That is absolutely insane. They get so much money. They get so much fucking money, dude. That's like incomprehensible to me. Only Sierra Club calls me. I get a lot of scam calls, but I just never pick up the phone. I just never answer my phone anymore. The whole communication platform, I've just abandoned it. The idea of the phone. Sometimes I'll maybe call my mom, but like that's it. I just don't. If you need to reach me at nighttime, you need to reach me, wake me up. Sorry, it's not going to happen. It's not. I'm just totally unreachable now. So good. Favorite Pixel phone feature is call screening that speaks to the caller through a pre-written prompt. Oh, that's interesting. I really do need to get one of those new phones. Can I have your number? Yes. Yeah. If my dad calls, shit is hitting the fan. Like, it better be serious. Give me and Jay your number. We can have group talks. Okay, done. 555 TRRS. I should set up we can't have like Google Voice numbers, or else I would set up a number that people could call. I would actually like to do that. You can't make Google Voice numbers here though. I would love to set up like a voicemail number, and some of you freaks and weirdos could be calling in. Rob's number is 8675309. Call-in shows always weirded me out, but it has its appeal. I've done call-in shows before on here, but I don't think it's the same though when it's on Discord, you know? You can kind of fake a call-in show vibe, but it would be cool to do you could call an actual phone number. How is this controversial? People have called into this show before. It's not that bad. And then I can really complete my transformation into Eric Bogosian's character in Talk Radio. Discord isn't good enough for you. It's good. It's a good communication platform. I'm simply saying that it's not a great platform to have like this call-in show format. I could call in the Canadian Embassy. You tell me they don't know who the fuck Cool Shades Rob is. That's weird because everyone knows me around here, so they're probably lying to you. Discord doesn't have that lovely audio filter that a genuine phone call does. I wonder if you could add that. If you could just add a filter. Add the phone effect. It's been a while since we've done a call-in show. Maybe we should do one soon. It's been quite a while. It's been probably like way over a year. Many people are saying, Marty, call into Rob's show. You could call in anytime, Marty. You could literally just join the show at any time. You're a Discord mod. Turn down your radio caller. Respect the 7-second delay we use. I remember specifically, Marty, when I have had you call into the show before, you've clammed up. You clam up on me. All of a sudden you get all shy. You become shy, Marty. As soon as the red light goes on, red light fever. We talked for like 40 minutes. That's because I had to coax it out of you, though. Okay? Don't argue with me. My memory is exquisite, okay? My memory, I never misremember anything. Many people know this about me. Never. It's never happened. Photographic memory. I never misremember anything, and I never misspeak. In all the thousands of hours now that I've done this stream, I have never misspoken once. Because I'm a professional. I'm a professional broadcaster. And I take this shit seriously. Oh, anyway. What's up now, then? The collar on your ankle will explode. Exactly. I'll instantly lose my foot. Speaking of meaningful demonstrations, anyone going to the DC rally on Saturday, TRRS USA meetup? I mean, that would be great if people did do that. I'm definitely going to be going to the one in Montreal. Feels like a historic. It feels like Saturday is shaping up to be a historic day. I think that's something that we should all get out, that everyone should be a part of. And I really recommend it, honestly. It's not a cure to the alienation and to the isolation that some of us are feeling right now, but it definitely helps. And like, take it from me again, like I've been talking about. I remember 20 years ago, not being a part of even though I was against the war, not being a part of the like rally in Montreal, and I've always regretted that. Not that it did anything to stop the war, but like those opportunities kind of only come along so many times. The opportunity to be part of like a historic moment like that. And like, I don't know if any of these rallies are going to contribute to stopping the bombing of Gaza. I don't know what it does, but like it is sending a message. I think there's no denying that. It is sending a really strong, loud and clear message to the ruling class that we're not buying their propaganda anymore. We're rejecting this like Zionist version of history and current events. We're rejecting their narrative. We're rejecting their propaganda, and that the people are with Palestine. The people are with Gaza. So, you know, that's not nothing. Like, whether it's going to stop it or not, that's not nothing. That's speaking loudly and clearly to the ruling class. It's a message to Palestinians as well, exactly. For sure. Maintaining reasonable expectations and hoping for the best don't need to be mutually exclusive, and the former should never justify doing nothing. For sure. Absolutely. It's something that I want to try and get involved with more, you know, these kind of social movements. We've talked about how limited they are, but it still doesn't mean that we shouldn't be getting involved with them. You know, I was so busy and caught up with like parenting and all that, like when all the Black Lives Matter stuff was going on. It's something that I am going to try to engage with more in the coming years. I don't know, up the Reds. I know that there's good places to buy the cafés. Like I know, like, I don't think it's that hard to find. If you look on Twitter, you can probably find a link. Like, you can get authentic ones. Because we have to look at this clip talking about these protest movements. Like, they're doing everything that they can to delegitimize things, and it's not just people in the media. It's not just people in the media. Like, I saw this, I find this, like, stunning. And I know we shouldn't expect much from the Biden administration. You know, that's why we're looking at that kente cloth picture there. But, like, obviously they're supporting and financing this mass murder campaign, this ethnic cleansing campaign, this genocide. And the way that, like, it's not only conservatives that are looking at these massive protests. Like, it's honestly insane to me. You look at these mass protests. It's a global mass movement that's happening right now. And rather than having any introspection, rather than saying, like, maybe these people are really supportive of Palestine, maybe we're on the wrong track here, maybe we should listen to what they're saying. These people, mostly conservatives, but these people are just like, no, these are all just Jew-hating anti-Semites. Every single one of these people. And just knowing full well that there's plenty of Jews involved in these protests. There's plenty of Jews that are involved in the Palestine movement and the anti-Zionist movement. They know full well, but then they just completely ignore that. Or like we talked about with the Ellie Valley in the podcast last night, which you can listen to here. You know, suggesting that they, like, don't count as being Jews, or they're self-hating or whatever it is. Like, it's really gross. But, like, it's not just these conservatives saying this. It's not just these, like, wacky conservative Zionists saying this. It's the Biden administration. Look at the size of these protests in, like, every major American city. There's going to be a lot of people in DC. There's going to be a lot of people around the world marching on Saturday around the world. There's probably going to be millions of people all together on Saturday. It's shaping up to be a really historic day. And the official Joe Biden administration stance on that is that these are like hate marches like Charlottesville. And if you think I'm exaggerating, I am not exaggerating. Just one more time. Think about the sheer numbers of people. Think about the sheer numbers of people that we're seeing around the world protesting right now and supporting Palestine, supporting the people of Gaza. And here's what the Joe Biden administration says about it.
Doesn't Biden think the anti-Israel protesters in this country are extremists?
What I can say is what we've been very clear about this. When it comes to anti-Semitism, there's no place. We have to make sure that we speak against it very loud and be very clear about that. Remember, what the president when the president decided to run for president is what he saw in Charlottesville in 2017, when he saw neo-Nazis marching down the streets of Charlottesville with vile anti-Semitic just hatred. And he was very clear then, and he's very clear now. He's taken actions against this over the past 2 years, and he's continued to be clear. There is no place for this type of vile and despite this kind of rhetoric.
And we hear you guys, though, talk about...
Like, honestly, this is crazy. Weird luck. It is crazy. Hundreds of thousands of people marching right now around the world, protesting, supporting Palestinians around the world. I will say again, many Jews involved in this movement. A essential part of this movement. You saw the Grand Central Station action that took place on Friday. And looking around and seeing hundreds of thousands of people marching in support of Palestine, and saying like these are exactly like the Charlottesville Jews will not replace us white supremacist neo-Nazi people. There's zero difference. And yeah, like you said, that's true as well. Baldwin's Ghost, the anti-black racism, that was an essential part of that march as well, which just gets completely ignored because we're only allowed to center one form of oppression. That's the only thing that we really care about. Any other form of racism or oppression, we just say that doesn't really count. Yeah, and he asked about Israel. Immediately, the first thing that they did, under 10 seconds into it, they say anti-Israel rallies, and she's immediately anti-Semitic. We stand against anti-Semitism, which is, as we've talked about many times, anti-Semitic in and of itself. Yeah, this lady does deserve, and this is what a perfect encapsulation of the hollowness of liberal identity politics. And how that's the as far as their progressivism will bring them. We'll have a diverse group of people that are whitewashing genocide, that is attacking and dismissing the left, attacking and dismissing anyone showing solidarity for Palestinians that are being mass murdered. That's the best you can hope for. And she's literally Haitian. Joe Biden has deported a record number of Haitian migrants over the last 3 years. In the midst of like an incredibly unstable environment with a pandemic happening, the instability directly contributed to by nonstop U.S. imperialist meddling in Haitian affairs as well. This queer woman of color is advocating for genocide, so you're racist if you disagree. That's Democratic Party liberal identity politics in a nutshell. This is like when Trump said there are good people on both sides. Might be even worse. I mean, it is worse in many ways. Like, I'm just thinking about the sheer number of people. And to look at all those marches and all those people, hundreds of thousands of people. I think there was 200,000 in London last weekend. And just being like, these people are all anti-Semites. They're basically neo-Nazis. Like, that is stunning. It really is. And these are the liberals. These are the progressives. These are the people you have to vote for to keep the really bad people out of office. Like, how can they continue to make that argument? And you can say IDPOL is a cancer, and I think it's in the same way that I think this constant effort to link Judaism and Zionism in a way that like contributes to anti-Semitism rather than like fights against it. I think that kind of liberal identity politics harms the kind of marginalized communities that it's supposed to uplift, because then people start dismissing the idea that we should have diversity and inclusion, and they see the way these things are weaponized, and they say, well, I'm against that because it's obviously fucking bullshit. Meanwhile, like, marginalized groups do need representation. They need more representation in our society, in government, in entertainment, all these things. There's been all these efforts to like diversify these kinds of things in the private sector. But when it's so hollow like this, people just dismiss the whole idea of diversity because it's such an obvious scam. I've seen some reports that claim London had 500,000. I mean, it was a huge number of people, and it's amazing it's honestly, there's those tweets of people just like showing this huge mass of people and being like, I'm so scared. All these people just hate Jews and want them to be wiped out. It's crazy to me, honestly. Yeah, I know that small cute frog. Leftist content creators who shall not be named are already pushing the "you must vote for Biden anyway" narrative. And I know that's what they're going to do. I don't think it's going to work this time. I really don't. And honestly, like I've always understood the argument. I get it. Like, Democrats are better on certain issues. They're really, really evil. They're imperialist. They're war criminals. They fund the police. Yeah, sure. I get the argument that they're better on a number of levels. But like now it's like, I don't know. I don't know if you can make that case anymore. Really. What does Trump would be worse mean in this case? Exactly. Like what more would Trump be doing right now to support Netanyahu and the Israeli government? What more would Trump be doing? Meanwhile, all these rights are being stripped away under Biden. Abortion rights for women being stripped away under Biden. Ken Klippenstein just posted about it. A poll of Arab Americans showing intention to vote for Biden has fallen from 69% to 17%. The first national poll of Arab Americans since the war in Gaza began shows how deep that sense of betrayal goes, with only 17% of Arab American voters saying they'll vote for Biden in 2024, a staggering drop from 59% in 2020. That is wild. Although the roughly 3 million Arab Americans residing in the U.S. today are hardly a monolith, more than half of them voted for Biden in 2020. In places such as Dearborn, Michigan, which boasts one of the largest Arab American populations in the country, the overwhelming majority did so. Arab American community leaders and activists tell Time that this wasn't because they had any illusions about Biden's pro-Israel stance, rather it was because they believed that he would be better than Trump, whose xenophobic and Islamophobic policies disproportionately affected the Arab American community. I can't remember. Is Michigan an important? Is that an important state? Is that one of the ones they need to win? I can't recall. No, I know. I was being facetious. Arabs are very serious about Palestine all across the world, including the diaspora. I mean, and like we were saying in that clip from Ali Abunimah, saying they for generations now, they've been trying to do everything right to influence politics to get someone on board with pushing back on this, to stand up for Palestinians. They go to the speeches, they vote for the Democrats. They've been writing songs and poetry and having forums and doing nonviolent protests and organizing boycotts for years and years and years and years and years. And then it comes down to this moment when there's a guy in office who has the possibility of stopping this mass murder campaign, and then he goes and gives a hug to the guy that's doing it. Netanyahu's not even popular with the Democrats. He's a right-wing Trumpist, war criminal gangster, Netanyahu. And Biden's over there the day after they commit yet another massacre at this hospital. Biden's over there giving him a big hug. He's not even popular in Israel. It makes no sense. Even from a cynical, set aside doing the right thing. Set aside doing the right thing, even from a purely cynical political perspective. It is the worst possible thing they could do. And it's let's go ahead and do that. Because if we don't, then Fox News and the opinion columnists are going to say that we love Hamas. So we got to go and give Netanyahu a big hug and kiss. Netanyahu is a Pittsburgh-raised Republican running a Middle Eastern ethno-state. That's right. Philly guy. From his indigenous land of Philadelphia. Yeah, the hug replays in my mind as well. I mean, it was shocking. Genuinely, especially after this like horrific attack at this hospital, which I think the death toll for this hospital attack was overstated slightly, even though there were dozens of families and people sheltering in this parking lot, and it did have a big death toll. I think that there was some kind of mistranslation in the official reporting that all of our media ran with, and then we accused them of giving the wrong number. But regardless, the day after this massacre at the hospital, you got Biden showing up in Israel, giving a big hug and kiss to Netanyahu. It was not popular anywhere. Not popular in Israel right now, even with this war going on. And then Joe Biden's out there saying, like, I don't trust the numbers. Not even about this hospital thing, but about overall. I don't trust the numbers, Jack. Even when Israel's like putting up the numbers themselves as like a scoreboard, bragging about killing all the civilians. The official death toll is still 460. Yes, so it's not even that far off from what was initially reported. Yeah, what people forgot somehow, because the media buried it, but the doctors gave a press conference surrounded by dead bodies. It was insane. And it's the kind of thing that, like, if that doesn't, like, sway people, then, like, what's going to? Like, even after that. Like, like I was asking that day when doing the stream when we were reacting to it. Like, what's going to be the thing that's going to make people say, like, okay, this has gone too far? You know? What's going to be the event that happens where Democrats are like, we can't continue to support this? Is this it? When there's this massacre at the hospital and you got doctors giving a press conference surrounded by corpses? Is that enough for you? Is that enough for you to distance yourselves from this a lot? And no, because these people are psychos. They're fucking psychos. No red line. But of course, they're also hedging and they're getting all kinds of behind the scenes where behind the scenes, the president's talking to Netanyahu and urging him to make distinctions between civilians and terrorist targets. Oh yeah, I'm sure they're going to get right on that. I'm sure they're going to get that. Thank you for the help.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Diego, for the gifted sub. Yeah, no, I was thinking that just as I was saying it, Pry Bars,
you can count on
the similarity to Sandy Hook.
To talk you through all this.
If anything was ever going to get done on guns in the U.S., it would have been after that, and nothing happened. Which is so funny because of all the conspiracy theorizing about Sandy Hook. It's a false flag. It's a false flag. They're coming to take our guns, but they didn't, though. They didn't come to take your guns. So what was the purpose of this false flag? Nothing happened. Nothing changed. And yeah, after that point, you're just like, okay, so there's nothing that can really happen that's going to convince people. Yeah, we talked about this on the podcast as well, Clobocop. In the UK, Starmer suspended a Labour MP for saying he wanted Jews and Muslims to live in peace between the river and the sea. You can't even say now the words river and sea. It's just automatically bad and anti-Semitic now. Even if you're like, from the river to the sea. And what I mean by that is a democratic state where people from all different religions can all live together and have the same amount of rights. They're like, no, racist, anti-Semitic, fired from your job. Watershed events to make me realize which side these ghouls are on. I mean, there's just like, you know, I just don't see how people are going to make this case. I just don't think this is going to work. This whole argument, this browbeating, moralizing argument about the lesser of two evils. You know? But what about the Supreme Court seats? What about the Supreme Court? It's like, well, they should have thought of that. They've had more than enough opportunities to reform the Supreme Court. They were in power. If they were actually fucking serious about doing anything about the Supreme Court, they could have fired Clarence Thomas. Openly, obviously corrupt Clarence Thomas. Ample evidence of his vast corruption and criminality. Get him out of there. Gone. Let's look into the Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh, who paid your gambling debts? Who's the mysterious benefactor that paid Kavanaugh's gambling debts? Get him out of here. You know, all of these people. Just fucking fire them or expand the court or do something. So they say, no, we're not going to do any of that. We're not going to go after these corrupt justices. We're not even going to try. We're not going to expand the court. Not only are we not going to expand the court, but we're not even going to have that conversation. We're not even going to make an effort to even think about doing that. All you can do is just vote for the Democrats so they can elect the next guy. Or woman. Or non-binary person. We're not going to get rid of these corrupt justices. We're not going to take away the power of the court. We're not going to expand the court. But if you vote for the Democratic Party, then the next justice, who will be like basically a neoliberal, who will still co-sign the exact same economic policies, will be like a non-binary person. How about that? That's what we offer you. The Kavanaugh gambling debts live in my mind absolutely rent-free. It's really just like the obvious corruption for me, you know? Like in any normal country, this would not be allowed. In any normal country, you would take one look at what Clarence Thomas has been up to and be like, oh, he's gone for sure. Yeah, that's obviously illegal. Jail. Non-binary judge strikes down union protections. That's right. That's voting for Democrats. That's what it gets you. Even like I've talked about before, even the whole thing with like Clarence Thomas's wife, she's like this lunatic that's plugged into all these January 6th conspiracy theories. She was emailing all these like Republican officials being like, stop the count. They're stealing the election. They claim to care about January 6th and these election things. Maybe a major Supreme Court justice's wife being directly involved in that. Maybe that's something you could look at. No? No, you're just going to let him keep his lifetime appointment? Okay, good. Yeah. You know? The most painful thing is like maybe there'd be an argument had they even tried to do these things like denouncing genocide in Gaza. Instead, we got Jews who protest Israel are vile. Yeah, they're neo-Nazis. In a normal country, the government would investigate Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirators. I agree with that. Couldn't agree more. Weird how like he died and everyone knew that was bullshit, the main story. And also, weirdly, have seen nothing about the trove of evidence that it was keeping in the form of like videotapes and recordings of powerful people that was kept at his apartment or his wherever the fuck he lived, townhouse. And we're just never going to hear about that. Maybe we'll hear about that 50 years from now. Oh, by the way, every single major political and private sector figure was involved in this trafficking ring, by the way. In China, she would have hung Thomas upside down by his ankles in public and had people throw rotten food at him, and he would have been correct to do so. That's what happens when you live in a country where there's actual rules for powerful people. and the people that are entrusted to make decisions that impact the lives of the people. When you're an obvious, corrupt, bumbling criminal, things don't go well for you over there. In Canada and the United States, we say, no, that's good, actually. We like that. These libs are all lawyers, so they know the public belief in the rule of law is essential to keeping the concept of democracy going. Instead, we have all of these examples of people in countries who are above the law. Now they're seeing they actually have to prosecute people, and they refuse to do it. Yeah, it's like that's liberal democracy. That's liberal democracy is when you can vote every couple of years for a lawyer landlord, and you have a lawyer landlord from the red team and a lawyer landlord from the blue team. You're welcome. Both of them are pro-genocide. Both of them are anti-union. Both of them are pro-privatization. These Congress reps, they're just great at picking stocks. Exactly. They're just really great. They're really lucky. They're just feeling lucky, these congressional reps who just keep making a killing on the stock market. I'd like to have that kind of luck, let me tell you. Like, if the United States took corruption seriously, they could probably jail a large percentage of the Congress and Senate and Supreme Court and White House. But Trump bad, that's right. I'll never forget Kelly Loeffler leaving a briefing about COVID and immediately investing in a body bag company. Like, what can you even say, you know? So no, I don't know if the lesser of two evils argument is going to be too successful. And here's, in case this is like, and look at that, in both cases, I find this interesting actually. So you've got the Democratic Party in America, and you've got the Conservative Party in the UK. And not only are the Democrats and the Conservatives like ideologically completely in lockstep when it comes to supporting Israel and like talking about these protests, but you've got women of color making out there being front people for the administration and making these kinds of accusations. In both cases, conservatives and liberals. Ideologically, zero difference, like zero daylight whatsoever between the different ideological viewpoints.
Well, first of all, let me explain what we've seen over the last few weekends. We've seen now tens of thousands of people take to the streets following the massacre of Jewish people, the single largest loss of Jewish life since the Holocaust, chanting for the erasure of Israel from the map. To my mind, there's only one way to describe those marches. They are hate marches. Now, secondly, the police and the Crown Prosecution Service
total lockstep
are operationally independent. So it's not for me to provide a running commentary on the specific legal decisions that they are making in real time on the ground. But what the police have made clear is that they are concerned that there's a large number of bad actors who are deliberately operating beneath the criminal threshold in a way which you or I, or the vast majority of British people, would consider to be utterly odious. Now, we keep our laws under review, and if there is a need to change the law, just as we did in relation to Just Stop Oil protests last year, I will not hesitate to act. I have made my views clear. These are hate marches, and the police must take a zero-tolerance approach to anti-Semitism.
Hundreds of thousands of people in the streets. They're all just hateful anti-Semites. And the police need to step up. And look at this shit. Like, we've been talking about the climate of McCarthyism, right? People losing their jobs, people like all kinds of people losing their jobs and employment. the police are starting to get involved, though. This is getting even more serious. Look at this shit. Did you see this? We have arrested, from the Metropolitan Police in the UK, we've arrested 2 women on suspicion of terrorism offenses following an incident during a protest in Trafalgar Square. 2 women were seen with images of paragliders on their tops on Saturday, 14th October. Are you paying attention to that? They had images of paragliders on their tops, arrested for suspicion of terrorism offenses. Is anyone maybe a little bit alarmed by that kind of climate? And the whole thing about the paragliders, I find it fascinating as well. And we've talked a lot over the last couple of days about the way October 7th and the reality of what happened has been obscured a lot. And this narrative of just rampant mass killings and sexual assaults against civilians has been promoted. And the whole, all the details about that, the role that the IDF played in increasing civilian casualties on that day, the fact that some of these Hamas fighters were going after IDF checkpoints, which is not only morally okay, but legal under international law. These people have escaped from a concentration camp, attacking IDF checkpoints, the concentration camp guards. Like, there couldn't be anything more cut and dry than that. But the way that now any support for anything that happened on that day, and like I said, if you know about Gaza, if you know about the state that people have been living in Gaza now for decades, and you look at clips of like people escaping from that on paragliders, bulldozing the Gaza prison fence, these are things that anyone should celebrate. But the way that now, like, all of that, every single reference to that now has been linked to this rampant, indiscriminate mass killings and rapes. So now it's literally illegal to express any sympathy or support for anything that Palestinians did on that day. You know, now you can't have an image of a paraglider, which could be like an image that would indicate, this effort to escape this concentration camp that gets bombed like once a year. One of the most depraved things that we've done to a people in modern history. But now it's illegal because now there's been this effort to suggest that what happened on October 7th was just basically like a celebration of Jews being murdered, just like the Holocaust. And that's all that it was about. And that's how it's been framed to people. That's the narrative that's been promoted. So now if you have an image of a paraglider on your shirt at a Palestine rally, terrorism charges from the police. Sorry if my peepo emote gets you arrested. Peepo glider. And I get that it's nuanced. And when we talk about this, as you know from watching my commentary or my coverage of this over the last couple of weeks, never have I suggested that everything that happened on October 7th was like great, or that civilians didn't die, or that bad things didn't happen. My point that I keep going back to every day, and I'll repeat this every day in case there's people watching this getting upset by the kind of things I say about this. When people escape from a concentration camp, I blame whatever violence happens in the wake of that. I blame the people that put them in the concentration camp in the first place. That's where I think our blame should go. That's where our understanding of like how this violence is happening, that's how it should be framed. It doesn't mean that everything was perfect or that bad things didn't happen. But as I said, if you know anything about Gaza, you should celebrate the images of people escaping from that camp and bulldozing that fence down. I would support the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, or the Haitian Slave Rebellion, or the Nat Turner Slave Rebellion, or it's guerrilla attacks by the Viet Cong in Vietnam. The paraglider videos were fucking cool and inspiring. I don't care. I mean, listen, I looked at my phone and I was seeing videos of people in these paragliders escaping from Gaza and then going after IDF checkpoints. I don't know why we're not allowed to celebrate that. I mean, we openly celebrate this kind of thing in Ukraine, right? We even celebrate attacks on Russian civilians in Ukraine. I had plenty of people when the bridge to Crimea was bombed pointing out that there's like Russian people, Russian civilians getting caught in that explosion, and people were celebrating it, being like, too bad. They're Russian orcs and they deserve to die. You know? But now, if you have an image of a paraglider at a Palestine rally, you're supporting terrorism, you're an anti-Semite, you're basically a Nazi. You're basically a neo-Nazi. Remember when they said anything that happens to Russians is fine because they should overthrow Putin? And they say the same thing about Palestinian civilians as well. They're not civilians. They don't count as being civilians. Why don't they overthrow Hamas? I don't know. You see this effort, this really insidious effort to just take away anything that you can do to show support or solidarity. This is why this narrative about October 7th just being this rampant, indiscriminate orgy of violence against civilians has been so important to maintain. And that's why that it's been encouraging to me to see people in the US and the UK and Canada and elsewhere not fall for this effort. They were in day one, as soon as these protests started, they were saying this is anti-Semitic, pro-Hamas stuff, and I think a lot of people kind of expected people to say, "Oh, whoa, hey, we don't want to be part of that." But people have ignored it. People have gone out in record numbers, which I think is a really positive and inspiring thing. That's why I refuse to get into semantics discussions. I pivot and redirect, then go on the offense. I mean, I think you're going to fit in well in this community. I think this is our strategy here when it comes to these things as well. Like when on October 7th, when I woke up and saw this, and I tweeted something to the effect of... use the computer
to mark up the size of the account.
Free Palestine. From the river to the sea. Get fucked Zionist entity David 79 Antifada.
Thank you, Gald Greek, aka Victor. Thanks for the 200 friend coin. Yeah, like the day that this happened, I tweeted something to the effect of like, when Palestinians defend themselves, then people don't want to stand with them anymore. And I'm positive that it's going to come back to haunt me at some point. Someone's going to take a screenshot of that tweet that says October 7th with my tweet about Palestinians defending themselves, and they're going to frame me as being some terrorist sympathizer, some person who thinks it's wonderful when people are murdered indiscriminately. You know? But like at the same time, I feel like we give people power to control our thoughts and our speech when we allow them to kind of set those terms, you know? That's why I'm not going to apologize or try and walk that back or play that kind of game, because I don't think it really only helps our enemies, our ideological enemies, when you do that. The Financial Times said that Hamas is not like ISIS, but more like the Viet Cong. The Financial Times is to the left of like every single mainstream Democrat on this. Is that good? You know? Is that a good thing? How is this going? How's our discourse going? So just tell people you're quoting from the very suspected Financial Times. And the Viet Cong are the good guys. They forgot that. Well, that's the thing. And when you go back and look at the news in the late 60s and early 70s, there's all kinds of news about the massacres and atrocities of the Viet Cong. And it's the exact same strategy. Like I think we talked about this yesterday. It's the exact same strategy. So then you put people on this defensive position, on this back foot position, and say like, oh, of course I support ending the war in Vietnam, but of course I don't support these Viet Cong atrocities either. It's like, it's just the same strategy over and over and over again. I hope this conflict tears our ruling class in half. Maybe the Financial Times going against the narrative is a sign of that happening. Well, it seems like that is happening, Sam. Like, it really does. Like, it feels like there's a schism happening, like, in our empire right now. Massive blast hits Gaza's largest refugee camp. So this is the news from today. So I guess we can take a look at this for a bit now. And we have the thing from the IDF spokesman. Thank you, Giovanni. So maybe this will be the thing that finally fucking gets people to reconsider some of this. Probably not, though.
That has come in, a bit of breaking news that has come into us in the past hour or so here, and there are reports that dozens of people have been killed after an explosion at a refugee camp in Gaza. Let's bring in our security and defence editor, Deborah Haynes, for more on this. So, Deborah, the reports are coming from the Jabalia refugee camp, and dozens apparently injured. What more can you tell us?
So Sky News has spoken to the director of the Indonesian hospital inside Gaza, who has said that there are hundreds of people injured and also killed at this Jabalia refugee camp, as you said, in the north of the enclave. The Hamas-controlled Interior Ministry has claimed that it was an Israeli airstrike. We've also gone to the Israeli military, and the Israel Defense Forces say that they are looking into the incident.
They're looking into it very strongly.
Sky News cannot independently verify what happened because it's not possible to report on the ground at the moment inside northern Gaza because of the war. The Israeli military had urged civilians in the northern part, which is behind me in the darkness, to move south as they started their ground operation, which is now in its fourth day. There have been a lot of airstrikes, gun battles going on as the Israeli military seek to, in terms of their goal, destroy Hamas, which operates in buildings but also in a network of tunnels under the ground. An Israeli minister was speaking before news of this explosion at the refugee camp, and was saying how Israel in its war does all it can to minimize the risk of harm to Palestinian civilians, yet Israel has come under heavy criticism because of the mounting death toll of civilians during its operations, which were launched, you'll remember, in the wake of the October the 7th terrorist attack by Hamas here in Israel.
You gotta bring it back to that when you're in the middle of talking about this yet another war crime and now just a non-stop stream of rampant criminality. Got to make sure you hammer that home as well before we end the segment. How is it even worth the airtime to question who did this? Well, fortunately for you, Old Dutch, I don't think they're even disputing this. Like, sometimes when they commit some kind of horrific, unspeakable act that warrants kind of international outcry, like we saw with the hospital last week, they'll do this. Oh, we're looking into it. We think that was actually Hamas that did that. We would never do that. No, they don't even seem to be denying that, though. Look at this even more ghoulish clip. And just remember, as we're watching this, Joe Biden and the Democratic Party and John Fetterman and Bernie Sanders support this. Bernie Sanders, John Fetterman, Joe Biden, completely indistinguishable stance on this. A few people in the party, in the progressive wing, have been calling for a ceasefire, Overall, though, the Democratic Party 100% supports this. So look at this.
Yes, I can. We were focused again on our target, a senior.
Look at this damage.
Senior
is this enough for the OSINT guys? Can the OSINT guys, is this enough? Can you go and take your little MS Paint drawings and do your little red lines to talk about how it actually wasn't really that bad? Is this enough of a blast crater in this refugee camp for these OSINT guys to weigh in on, do you think?
Senior Commander Wolf, and we'll be updating you with more data as the hour moves ahead.
But even if that Hamas commander was there amidst all those Palestinian refugees who are in that Jabalia refugee camp, Israel still went ahead and dropped a bomb there, attempting to kill this Hamas commander, knowing that a lot of innocent civilians, men, women, and children, presumably would be killed. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's not what you're hearing, Wolf. We're focused on this commander, again, who you'll get more data who this man was. Killed many Israelis. We're doing everything we can. It's a very complicated battle space. There could be infrastructure there. There could be tunnels there. We're still looking into it, and we'll give you more data as the hour moves ahead.
Is this fucking Scottish?
But you know that there are a lot of refugees, a lot of innocent civilians, men, women, and children in that refugee
Scottish
camp
Zionist?
as well, right?
This is the tragedy of war, Wolf. I mean, as you know, we've been saying for days, move south. Civilians that are not involved with Hamas,
fucking
please move
criminals.
south.
We told them to move south. We told them to, why won't they leave? We told them to move south. It's the tragedy of war. It's not a war. The other side doesn't have a fucking army. We told them to move south, and they didn't, so we dropped a massive bomb on a refugee camp. That's just the tragedy of war. This is absolutely sickening. This is absolutely fucking grotesque, these people.
They're trying to get a little bit more information. You knew there were civilians there. You knew there were refugees, all sorts of refugees.
He's not.
But you decided to still drop a bomb on that refugee camp, attempting to kill the Hamas commander. By the way, was he killed?
We don't know.
I can't confirm yet. There'll be more updated. Yes, we know that he was killed. About the civilians there, we're doing everything we can to minimize. I'll say it again. Sadly, they are hiding themselves within.
We're doing everything we can to minimize.
And again, we are doing this stage by stage.
While you're talking about bombing a refugee camp.
Every one of these terrorists who was involved in that heinous attack on the 7th of October. Wolf.
And Red Scary says,
Colonel, I'm having trouble.
Absolutely sickening people. It's okay to kill as many civilians as you want, as long as you told them to leave first, I guess. And again, as we've talked about, this twisted settler logic that you're describing, guess what? Hamas and others have told Israelis to leave quite many for decades now as well. They've been quite clear. And Israelis are voting for the Israeli government. Many of them support what the government does. Apparently, it's totally justified in that case. According to them, not according to me. According to them, according to their own twisted, fucked up, murderous logic, it's totally okay. Whatever happens to civilians, women, kids, men, ambulance drivers, doctors, nurses, journalists, artists, poets, fathers, sons, mothers, brothers, sisters. Totally justified. Totally okay. It's just the tragedy of war. But of course, October 7th, worst terrorist attack ever, indiscriminate killing, everything we do after is justified. Man, it's absolutely sick. These are absolute sickos. Here's Tony, genocide-loving child murderer Tony Blinken.
Distinguished members of the Appropriations Committee, thank you for this opportunity to testify before you today.
The Geneva Convention forbids the bombing of densely populated areas. Stop supporting the genocide and ethnic cleansing.
Like, we're seeing a schism. Like,
the people of Gaza. Cease fire now. Save the children of Gaza. Save the children of Gaza. Cease fire now. Where is your pride, America?
I do recognize that people feel very passionately, but I ask that we have order in this hearing room and respect our speakers. We will move forward with the hearing.
Respect the institutions.
And allow the
Respect
people
the
here
rules.
and the American people to hear from their witnesses.
For sure,
Senator
totally
Blinken.
dead inside.
Distinguished.
Well, and that's the thing, like you're saying, Yellow Bee, I had a convo like this with my parents last night. They kept telling me to be balanced and to look at both sides. And that's how this has been perpetuated for years. Like, there aren't two sides. It's not a war. It's not a conflict. There's one side that has everything, and there's one side that has nothing. And respecting this kind of pretend balance only allows the violence and the devastation to continue. Blinken needs someone screaming at him every day. Well, as I pointed out, like, I think all our political leaders, I hope this is how they're treated for the rest of their fucking lives. Their worthless lives. I hope they never get a moment's peace again for supporting this. Yeah, I've looked at both sides and I've made my decision. You see this like fetishization of just not taking a side. Which ultimately, when you're talking about these situations where one side has all the power and one side doesn't, when you don't take a side, you're de facto taking a side. That's what passes for like liberal nuance kind of in our society. You know, this is part of our journalistic class, how they kind of perpetuate these things. And then our parents and people that are plugged into that journalism take their cues from them. And then that's how it is to be a sophisticated person, to have nuance. You know, which just perpetuates the same thing, the exact same oppressive and exploitative system for perpetually, indefinitely. I have looked at the Zionist argument, their history and political development. They actually admitted to being colonizers and admitted to doing genocide repeatedly. Yeah, exactly. Like, we were looking at some of those clips yesterday. From some of these like militias that helped in 49, you know, initially go into Palestine and start this ethnic cleansing process. It's horrific. Boomers really do respect these people. I know, it is deranged. Bro, I went to school for journalism and it always bothered me when they pushed that narrative. Exactly. I mean, this is how journalism in our society, and we value this like free press and freedom of speech and all this bullshit. But then we have a system, and we train people to think that way, to think that you can never be subjective. You know, you can never input your own decision. You always have to be objective, and that means being balanced. And you say, well, this side said this, and this side said this, and you present people with the two different things that people are saying, and you don't interject. When one side is lying, it doesn't matter, you know? When one side has all the power, has full support from the U.S. government, has an army and tanks and planes and bombs and guns and soldiers, and one side is 2 million people that are trapped in a concentration camp, you can't make a moral judgment on that as a journalist. That's going against the rules. You can't inject some kind of moral judgment. And like we're seeing in Canada as well, there's journalists that are losing their jobs for refusing to play that game.
Personal news to share. So Global News fired me for speaking up about Palestine on my social media account. Being their only Palestinian journalist in the newsroom, I thought my voice would matter the most to them during these times. But maybe I was mistaken. On the day of October 17, exactly as we Palestinians were counting the deaths from the Baptist Hospital massacre that took the lives of over 500 people in Gaza, I was on a phone call with a senior leader at Global.
Al Jazeera is the only outlet I've been reading for this, for sure. They're the only ones that have been doing anything approaching decent coverage, but that touches that mainstream level. There's people doing good coverage of it in the independent space, obviously, and that's why Tony Blinken himself is going to like the Qatari government and being like, hey, can you tone down this coverage, the Al Jazeera coverage? Like the same day an Al Jazeera journalist has his family targeted and murdered. Yeah, exactly, Farflight. Like, it's unbelievably fucked. We support the precious, sacred edict of freedom of the press, except when our close ally takes the weapons that we give them and literally assassinates journalists and their families and targets journalists' families. We don't think they know these journalists in Gaza, where they live, where their families live. They know where they are. Intentionally murdering journalists, intentionally targeting their families with airstrikes. Do we have a word to say about that? No. But when like Ortega in Nicaragua expels or tries to eliminate like media outlets that are funded by the CIA and funded by the United States government, that's like this big thing that we need to justify, more sanctions and more destabilization efforts, because they don't respect this sacred freedom of the press, or in China or anywhere else. Like, it's just it's just absolutely gross. Progressive except Palestine. And that's why I think that like this benchmark is there. Because when progressives in our political world or our media world express sympathy for Palestinians or talk about this conflict the way they should talk about it, there's consequences for them. There's no consequences for supporting the status quo. It actually makes your life much more difficult to do the right thing, and that's exactly why it's an important litmus test for people. Can the fascists have their newspaper? Can have their radio programs? Exactly. That's why that speech is so great, because it can always, you see the same pattern over and over and over and over again.
To be told I'm fired for everything I've been posting. Not a single word of sympathy. No regard to the humanitarian crisis, the genocide the world is witnessing and that I'm personally affected by. I was told to take down every post and comment with hashtag Free Palestine, Gaza genocide, and
although also if you're a journalist and you want to say that Russia is bad or Putin's bad, of course that's okay as well. No repercussions there. If you want to say, I actually support Russia and don't want NATO interfering in Ukrainian affairs or provoking this war, that's bad though. You don't want that. You don't have to be objective all the time if you promote narratives that like reinforce our kind of Western hegemony and frame our official enemies as the baddies. Then you don't have to be as objective. But anytime you step outside of that, then it's no good.
Gaza under attack, saying that my posts make me look unbalanced. I was told the problem is with me expressing my beliefs.
That's right, she's unbalanced.
For Israel's genocide of my people. Global was literally asking me to look at these horrific images, this genocide, and detach myself from my identity, my own people, and say nothing. Is this ethical or moral, humane or diverse or inclusive? I don't even know. Reason number 2 for firing me was this. I got an email from an employee to come to an investigation. Let's call her Kay. And honestly, I felt so disrespected and neglected as a Palestinian employee of this organization. Not a single word of sympathy from anyone on an organizational
but one of these employees was made to feel very unsafe by your comments.
Reminders about social media policies.
I bet this fellow employee was made to feel very unsafe by some of this commentary.
To stop posting. So in my response to Kay, I included this screenshot of a post from Sean King, telling Kay that this image of a dead Gazan baby has been my reality and my people's reality for 75 years. I was trying to hopefully get anybody to understand or sympathize or respect my pain, my people's suffering. Unfortunately, instead of sympathizing, Kay focused on her personal feelings and found it
The image you sent previously was... She's going nuclear on this, and I appreciate it. The image you sent previously was very disturbing to me. I apologize it has taken me a few days to process receiving such an image without my request. I will ask that you refrain from sending images of that nature without my request or unless they become relevant during this fact-finding process.
Disrespectful of me to send her such a disturbing image. Moreover, everyone I spoke to at this company was outraged at me for sending such a disturbing image, and they literally fired me for it. I was even told by my own union representative that even if that image was my reality, I had no right to make it the reality of that employee. I mean, do we matter at all? No one in this workplace would even acknowledge my pain. I'm being told that my people and I should suffer in silence and die quietly, not to disturb others. We have no right. This is not about silencing me. It's about us, about silencing all of us, all of what I was representing in that newsroom. I have no regrets. I'm not the first, not the last journalist to be fired for speaking up about Palestine. Seeing a genocide before my eyes and saying nothing might be unbalanced according to some standards, but that's unethical. A policy that tells me to shut up about the killing of my own people is unethical. I cannot possibly stay
This is
silent
global news in Canada.
while witnessing this injustice. I think this organization has failed me as a Palestinian, as a journalist, as a racialized journalist. But this is not just about me. I ask you to please take a moment, send an email to Global, asking them respectfully to not fail the Palestinians in their storytelling. Thank you.
You gotta love that freedom of speech and freedom of the press in our beautiful, wonderful, liberal democracy, ironclad commitment to this sacred edict of freedom of the press. And that's the amazing thing, like I was saying, about being unbalanced. This idea, it's when you promote the Palestinian perspective like that, when you talk about this genocide, you're being unbalanced. But what's unbalanced is like the power dynamic in this situation. And when you pretend that that doesn't exist, that's definitionally it's being unbalanced. When you're suggesting that there's some kind of balance inherently, which doesn't exist, you're promoting the exact same ongoing status quo, which in and of itself unbalanced. It's actually promoting more balance by speaking to that perspective, which is completely ignored in our media and in our politics. That's promoting balance when you're telling the other side of the story. I thought that's what journalism was supposed to be. That's when I started getting interested in journalism and doing this kind of thing, that's what I was my understanding of what it was. You speak truth to power. You hold powerful people accountable. You know, you tell stories that aren't being told in our media. I thought that was the whole fucking point of being a journalist in the first place. Balance is not making Kay feel uncomfortable. That's right. Here's Blinken again, keeps getting interrupted.
Back, not in the face of Russia's aggression against Ukraine, not in the face of an intensifying strategic...
You're still talking about Russia's aggression against Ukraine while you're subsidizing genocide.
Face of Russia's aggression against Ukraine, not in the face of an intensifying strategic competition in the Indo-Pacific and around the world.
If the witness will suspend, and I ask that everyone
what a hero.
respect this hearing.
She's been doing this for years now, doing more than any Democrat has ever done to stop war, to protect people's lives.
The world is calling for a ceasefire. The American people don't want to support this brutal war. Stop the war. Stop the ceasefire now.
Kotalotha, I support the Palestinian people. Palestinian people are being kept in a 2 million person concentration camp that's being routinely bombed. I support them doing what they can to get out of that situation.
That Israel is doing on the people of Gaza. Ceasefire now. Ceasefire now.
Wow, look at all the people.
Thank you, Senator Blinken. If you can continue.
Not shrinking back.
Seriously, she's been doing this for years. And now, of course, now that Joe Biden's in charge, liberals are calling her like she's like Putin financed. There's whole New York Times articles investigating the link between like code. They're suggesting Code Pink is some like foreign influence op. The idea that people could just be organically maybe opposed to the United States government, constant barbaric, blood-soaked legacy. Perhaps people are just that live in the country are not comfortable with that, and they do whatever they can to try and throw their bodies in the gears of that, or try and raise awareness of this. Perhaps people just have an organic view. No, it must be Putin that's responsible for this. I don't care if Russia does finance Code Pink, and in fact, I think it's good. Someone's got to finance them. It's not like anyone in the U.S. government's going to do it. Yeah, they had both camera angles covered, for sure. That was really well done. What's this stuff about Yemen? This is crazy. Yemen declared they are now at war with Israel. The Republic of Yemen is the first country to officially announce its entry into the Battle of the Flood of Al-Aqsa and launches a large number of ballistic and winged missiles and drones at a number of Israeli IOF targets inside occupied Palestine.
والإنسانية والوطنية واستجابة لمطالب شعبنا اليمني العزيز.
Probably need a translation on that guy.
للشعوب العربية والإسلامية أن تقول كلمتها وأن تنتصر لغزة ولأطفالها ونسائها. ونحن ومن واقع الشعور بالمسؤولية الدينية والأخلاقية والإنسانية والوطنية واستجابة لمطالب شعبنا اليمني العزيز ومطالب الشعوب الحرة ونجدة لأهلنا المظلومين في غزة كان لا بد للقوات المسلحة اليمنية أن تقوم بواجبها.
Yeah, this is putting pressure on Nasrallah probably, yeah.
وانتصارا للمظلومية التاريخية للشعب الفلسطيني العزيز وعليه وبعون الله تعالى قامت قواتنا المسلحة بإطلاق دفعة كبيرة من الصواريخ البالستية والمجنحة وعدد كبير من الطائرات المسيرة على أهداف مختلفة للعدو الإسرائيلي في الأراضي. كان لا بد للشعوب العربية والإسلامية.
Well then. So I guess that's the question now, is what's the next step going to be? Is Hezbollah going to get more officially involved?
That Israeli police are hardly responding to complaints made by Palestinians who suffer violence.
Bilal's family and friends now join the many other thousands of Palestinians who gave up hope for justice long ago. Charles Stratford, Al Jazeera, As-Sawiya in the occupied West Bank.
Our coverage of Israel's war on Gaza continues next, including the Palestinian community in Turkey mourning the loss of loved ones in Gaza.
Hey, look at this. We got a friend of the show.
Conflict is shaking out in many different ways. We are very, very honored, as always, to be joined here by Dr. Vijay Prashad, the Executive Director of the Tricontinental Institute. Vijay, thank you so much for being back with us.
Well, I'm here now, and I'm happy to be with you. So.
Well, Vijay, we're very happy to have you for sure. I mean, Maybe let's get your perspective on this. I mean, we've seen this, I don't know what else to call it, but theater at the United Nations over the past few days. And it seems that nothing will really come from the United Nations because there is no consensus around the idea of a ceasefire. It seems that many countries are trying, or not many, the United States and the United Kingdom trying to block that. I mean, what do you make of this? Because I think one of the contexts of this entire conflict that people are saying is, well, it's happening in the context of a multipolar world, the move away from a unipolar world, but it does feel a little bit like business as usual in terms of how the quote-unquote international community addresses the plight of the Palestinians.
Classic VJ.
Well, it's a very difficult situation. Lines have been drawn and have been drawn decades ago. You can't expect the lines to be moving around the question of Palestine. There's a pretty hard block with the United States, many European countries standing firmly with the Israelis. I mean, many of them, Maloney of Italy, Biden of the United States, went rushing to Tel Aviv. It's very hard to crack that block. On the other side, there is, of course, some different dimensions, which is that the fact that the Chinese and Russians vetoed a UN resolution which said that, sponsored by the United States, which said that Israel has a right to defend itself. I mean, the very fact that the United States put that resolution forward shows you that they were just testing the Russians and the Chinese to veto it. And there came the veto. That's not where I think the major changes are taking place. I think there's some pretty big changes happening in the Arab world. Pretty big changes. At the behest of I think several of the Arab countries, 9 of them have issued a statement today, October 26th. That's Egypt, Jordan, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar, Kuwait, and Morocco.
For sure,
this is a pretty
an example of
statement.
this shift.
They're calling for an immediate
shift that's happening. It's ongoing,
an end to
right?
the death of civilians and so on. They're asking for the United Nations to intervene one way or the other. I didn't even see this during Cast Lead, if I'm honest with you. I was watching with great interest the interview given by Queen Rania, not this Queen Rania, but the one from Jordan. Yes, Rania Abdullah II, the wife of Abdullah II. She did an interview with Christian Amanpour on CNN. Very instructive interview. You see, when somebody like Queen Rania goes and does an interview, it's highly scripted. There are 10 advisors, 20 of them in the room. They've gone over with a fine-tooth comb what she's allowed to say, because she's, in fact, speaking for the monarchy, for King Abdullah II. And man, I don't know if you watched that interview, but Queen Rania demolished Christian Amanpour's attempt to speak in the name of Benjamin Netanyahu. I mean, she said the conflict didn't start on October 7th. She said, don't keep focusing on Hamas. Why do you keep wanting me to condemn the Palestinians and stand with the Israelis? She said there's apartheid, there's dispossession, there's oppression. This language from Queen Rania is very, very new for me. Haven't seen this kind of language, forthright, long interview, kept going at Christian Amanpour, speaking to a mainstream Western audience, saying that, we in the region, this is quite important. There are 2 countries that opened up the normalization with Israel, Egypt and Jordan. These are the 2, Egypt first, Jordan second. You'll notice that President Sisi, hardly an independent thinker or even an independent actor. He's got one leash that runs to Washington, D.C., another leash that runs to the Saudi royal family. Sisi says, hey, listen, we're not going to allow the Palestinians into Egypt because that's actually going to mean that you get your 3-state solution. The states of Egypt, Lebanon, and Jordan. We're not interested in that. And on the other side, large demonstration in Amman, which I'm sure has moved Abdullah II. He's probably worried about what's going to happen in Jordan. Queen Rania comes on TV and says, hey, listen, we stand with the Palestinians. She has to reflect the reality, even though it's a monarchy. They're afraid, they don't want to see this cascading rebellion inside Jordan. I'm actually looking for the cracks here. I'm looking
Yeah, I
for the
believe so,
moment
Dakadim.
when perhaps King Abdullah, inspired by those demonstrations, maybe pushed by his Palestinian wife, is going to say something like, hey, listen, Tel Aviv, this peace agreement you have with us, maybe we're going to rethink that. I'm actually looking at that. I'm also looking for when Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah speaks. You know, Nasrallah does a weekly television show where he talks about all kinds of things. You know, he's even talked about television serials and various things. Last 3 weeks, Nasrallah has been silent.
The
There have been
Hezbollah
photographs
teaser
of
trailer was
Nasrallah
really
meeting
funny.
the leaders of Hamas and Islamic Jihad. And even that meeting is not sure when it happened. You know, I've been around the Hezbollah people long enough to know that they sometimes hold meetings, take photographs, and hold the photographs to release at the appropriate time, largely because they know that the Israelis might pick up where the meeting took place and bomb that location. You know, they're very clever with their security. But Nasrallah is silent, and people are saying, what will Nasrallah say?
He's been quite a showman.
Clear, and I'll end with this. It's quite clear that Nasrallah is only going to speak when Hezbollah is going to act. And thus far, one rocket here, one rocket there, one rocket from Syria and so on, that's not an assault. That's, you know, indisciplined Hezbollah fighters maybe, or other factions. It's somebody in Syria just firing a rocket. Nasrallah is going to speak when Nasrallah is ready to act. And thus far, it seems Hezbollah is holding its horses, waiting to see when the Israelis will move their tanks into Gaza. I think that's the moment we'll get a speech from Nasrallah. That's going to be a declaration of war. Israel is going to be in serious trouble.
Well, I'm hoping that this is the one time where I really hope that Nasrallah doesn't speak. I'm frightened for when he does, because it will be that speech of we're going to war. And we know that one of Hezbollah's red lines, it's not even necessarily the ground invasion, it's if Hamas is threatened existentially. And so far they're not. I mean, despite obviously the horrific carpet bombing of Gaza, me and Eugene were just talking about how Israel hasn't made any military advances. They're just dropping bombs on children right now, which is a very easy thing to do, sadly. But it's just a very emotional temper tantrum style response. And as we all wait for this looming ground invasion, I think you make so many important points about the cracks in the region and how important that is. And the fact that you have so many countries across the region that are essentially, you could say, client states of America. I mean, the Egyptians, the Jordanians, a lot of these Gulf states, maybe not, not entirely client states, but mostly like, in the pockets of the US. I mean, the Saudis, they're not on board with this. None of them are. They're not only, they're not only cranking up the rhetoric a little bit in ways that they never have, and saying things about the Palestinian cause in ways that we haven't heard them say. They're also, you have the Saudis meeting with the Iranians about this. That's new. You have the Saudis like really refusing to get on board. The normalization with Israel for now is not going to happen. The Qataris are not just doing whatever the Americans say, though they're always a little bit, independent, but more so. And so I just want to place this in the context of, or want to ask you if we can place this in the context of not just these very, pro-US countries reacting in their own self-interest. In the case of Egypt, there's no way they're going to allow a branch of the Muslim Brotherhood to have a base in the Sinai and have all these Palestinians in the Sinai. They know once they're there, they're never leaving, right? Like you said. The Jordanians have a security risk too. And also, I just will mention, I'm sure you saw that video in Egypt in Tahrir Square in a state-sanctioned protest where people were chanting for Nasrallah to bomb Tel Aviv. I'm sure that didn't sit very well with Sisi either. But you have all these cracks and you have all these countries
There's
acting
these major fissures are forming. It's so fascinating.
in a self-interested way that doesn't align with the U.S. And so I'm curious if we can maybe place this in the context of a multipolar world, in the sense that it's not just the U.S. hegemon anymore. There is a little bit more space to maneuver than there was 5 or 10 years ago. Maybe that's wishful thinking. But that does speak to the fact, I think, that you do have rising powers like Russia and China. Whether Russia and China are doing anything or not on this issue almost doesn't even matter, because the countries in this region just seem to have a little bit more space. What do you think about that?
Well, the day after the...
Well, that's the amazing thing, Sean. Like, it's not just Jordan, right? It's like Jordan, Qatar, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, like all these surrounding nations, they're all kind of like US client states. And that's the amazing thing, is that you're seeing these like fissures forming. You're seeing the people protesting in these places. You're seeing a little bit more tepid pushback from the leaders of these places. Even like MBS has a better position on this than most progressives in Canada and the US. So that's the really fascinating thing. Like they're client states, they're dependent on US funding for even existing, but they can't ignore what's going on, and they can't ignore like their like the actual people that live there and their attitudes over it. All the Arab nations work together in the US ceasefire resolution, which is unprecedented in modern times. It's really fascinating, like this trend that we're seeing, and these fissures that are forming, these cracks in this hegemony that are getting even worse. Like if you think about like the Western hegemony or US hegemony, and like, you know, once the process of collapse starts, once the cracks start forming, then they start coming faster and faster. If you think about like, you know, in the physical world, if you're on a sheet of ice or something like that, and then all of a sudden, whoosh, you fall right through.
October 7th, on October 8th, I believe, the Iranian President Rais, had a direct phone call with Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, the effective ruler of Saudi Arabia.
Blinken talking to Qatar and being like, hey, can you tone down the Al Jazeera stuff?
It's the first direct communication between the heads of government of Iran and Saudi Arabia since 1979. And all that they talked about was Gaza and what was happening in Gaza, and how they both jointly condemned what was happening in Gaza. You see, I actually don't believe that Saudi Arabia could actually be easily described any longer as a client state. It's being quite insubordinate in many respects. It deals with the Chinese. It's talk about Saudi Vision 2030, Mohammed bin Salman's decision to enter the BRICS alongside Iran, alongside Egypt, which, as you know, is really getting more and more to be a client state of Saudi Arabia than a client state of the United States. Things are really shifting quite rapidly. And just as the war in Ukraine was an accelerant for some of the shifts, this war in Gaza is an accelerant for other shifts. Now, hard to exactly predict what's going to occur. But here's what I want to say, and here's the chilling part of it. You know, Lloyd Austin, US Defense Secretary, was on ABC News, where he talked about the reason why they've sent a number of senior US generals to go and assist the Israelis. And the reason he gave, which really, it just struck me as insane, is he said he himself had been in charge of Central Command during the so-called war against ISIS. And he had overseen the wars in Mosul and Raqqa. And he sent the general, the lieutenant general, who was the one who ran the war in Mosul, to go and help the Israelis with this ground assault in Gaza. Now, I want you to remember, the war in Mosul killed about 11,000 civilians. 11,000. And a couple of things. One, ISIS in Mosul only had 2 years to prepare their defenses. You know, Hamas has been inside Gaza preparing for a conflict like this since about 2007, when the medieval siege of Gaza begins. And secondly, I remember tens of thousands of Mosul residents running into the countryside before the US bombardment started. The Palestinians have no countryside to run into. So if the United States is willing to repeat Mosul in Gaza, you're not going to get 10, 11,000 dead. You're going to get 20, 30, 40,000 people killed just like this. And if that happens, I'm telling you, the Arab states will not be able to contain their populations. And that is the reason why today 9 Arab states sent that statement to the United Nations. They will not be able to contain their populations. No Arab, and forget about the rest of the world for a minute, because I think countries will not be able to contain their populations.
You're not going to be able to control people
Ireland,
inside the
all the way
countries.
down to Australia, from Japan out. The populations are going to be on the street furious. If we watch the Israelis massacre Palestinian civilians, not 500 a day, 800 a day, but 10,000 a day, 15,000 a day, that is just going to be something that the Arab populations won't stand for. I'd like to remind General Sisi, and I hope he watches your program, but after the after the defeat of the Egyptian army in 1948 at the hands of the Israelis and their British helpers, after the defeat of that army, inside the Egyptian army, there was a great sense of demoralization. Out of that demoralization emerged the very great Gamal Abdel Nasser and the free officers. If the Egyptians are going to sit by and allow the Israelis to massacre tens of thousands of Palestinians, something is going to break in Egypt. Sisi doesn't control everything. Something will break, and these governments know it. That's why Aqaba, the meeting in February to bring normalization to Israel, Aqaba is finished.
No.
Sharm el-Sheikh in March of this year.
Forget about that.
Finished. No more normalization. The Arab street is not going to take it. And I think that's the reason why these 9 governments have said, hey, listen, we got to have a ceasefire. They're not just thinking about the Palestinians, guys. They're thinking about themselves, because they are going to be on the dustbin of history if they don't act now to somehow block the Israeli advance. Is this enough? Of course not. This ceasefire is not enough, but it's a start. I mean, the Arab people are going to now clamor for an end to the occupation. In fact, that's why I say this particular period is an accelerant. No more two-state solution. That's not going to be attractive to people. They're going to call for an end to an occupation. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I think that's the reason why we're seeing Saudi Arabia call Iran, these 9 countries joined together.
Once again, through the U.S. through its own belligerence is forcing these longtime enemies to work together.
Their history.
Well, greetings to everyone watching in the new administrative capital in Cairo. But let me just ask you this briefly, Vijay, before we let you go. You mentioned 1948. Of course, one of the most outspoken voices in 1948 was Mr. Nehru, of course, the Prime Minister of India, who I believe voted against in the UN against the creation of Israel. Now, of course, we're seeing Mr. Modi, the Prime Minister of India.
This is some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Hello, Majority Report. Hello and welcome, folks. Bring it on in here. Thank you for joining me. Thanks for the raid to the Majority Report. I believe it's my man Matt Leck on Majority Report. I appreciate that. I'm Rob. Hello. It's nice to see you. Please smash the follow button. If you can, if you want to, I don't know. That's one thing that you can do. Very easy. You just press the little button. Costs nothing at all. And helps me out a whole lot. Thanks for joining the stream. We're actually just finishing up this clip from Breakthrough News talking about my personal friend and a friend of the show, Vijay Prashad, talking about the ongoing events in Palestine and also talking about the ways that these fissures are forming in these kind of Arab client states. And about how if this massacre continues, it's going to be really impossible for these, the leaders of these countries like Egypt and Jordan to contain the outcries of people that want them to do something to put a stop to it. Even talking about ways that Saudi Arabia is becoming less and less of a client state and more belligerent and is now starting to take these kind of steps as well. Really, really interesting stuff. The clip's almost finished. Again, thanks for joining the show. I appreciate it. Let's look at the rest of this clip, and then we'll hang out some more.
Really major champion in the global south of Israel. Give us some context for that.
I'll just back up the questions so we get started on the same page.
Joined together.
Well, greetings to everyone watching in the new administrative capital in Cairo. But let me just ask you this briefly, Vijay, before we let you go. You mentioned 1948. Of course, one of the most outspoken voices in 1948 was Mr. Nehru, of course, the Prime Minister of India, who I believe voted against in the UN against the creation of Israel. Now, of course, we're seeing Mr. Modi, the Prime Minister of India, become one of maybe the only really major champion in the global south of Israel. Give us some context for that well, there it is.
Well, it's a long story, and we don't have much time to get into it.
All that normalization is finished now.
The Hindu right has since 1948, in fact, been big backers of Israel. At the same time, just as the Christian right in the United States, they are deeply anti-Semitic. I mean, the Hindu rights great intellectual Golwalkar wrote a book in the 1950s saying that the Hindu right needs to do to the Muslims of India what the Germans did to the Jews. These are the same people who are great champions of Israel. This is an old story. It's a kind of anti-Muslim alliance between the Hindu right and the Zionists in Israel. But let's not exaggerate this. There will be
at least the Zionists really respect the Hindu right for making this kind of
Muslim
stance.
Populations. It has also a very large population of people who have great feeling for the Palestinians. There are cracks even inside India. Modi can say whatever he wants to
but at
say,
least you can see that he's hedging as well.
Sending
totally reliant
his
on the
greetings
US
to the
and the West
Israeli
as well,
state
but
and so on.
hedging.
But this is not going to be the only voice out of India, because we're going to see more cracks in the mirror. And Modi, anyway, on foreign policy is caught between two stools. India requires the Gulf Arab states to balance out with China on its northeastern flank. India needs Saudi Arabia, needs its relationship with the Arab Emirates and so on. So it's itself going to be caught in some of this churning. I wouldn't exaggerate Modi's great love affair with Netanyahu. I don't think India can ride that bull very far. If it does, it's going to crash the Indian economy, because the Saudis might just turn around and say, hey, listen, we're not going to sell you oil at a concessionary rate anymore.
Dr. Vijay Prashad, Executive Director of the Tricontinental Institute and one of the hosts of Give the People What They Want from People's Dispatch, which you can see tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m.
We've got to watch this Abby Martin clip as well.
Here's one
good
thing you need to do before buying.
Before we talk about this, let's hear more about fucking
until you watch this first.
Manscaped or whatever.
And my
it is.
question to the
this is a whole hour-long thing, so I guess not enough time for today. Maybe tomorrow we can take a look at that. Of course, as I mentioned too, I have been in touch with Abby over the last couple of weeks and a couple times over the last couple of years, frankly, to get her on this show. She seems to always be going through major life upheavals, like whenever I contact her. But we have been in touch. She has said that she will come on the show. It's just a matter of finding the right time and reaching out at the exact right moment. I got one more thing to look at. Talking about Nasrallah and how he's been kind of conspicuously silent, and then released that kind of like almost like a Marvel teaser video, which I thought was really funny. And then of course it ended up in this remix, which I also enjoyed. This is for our community member VIP Red Scary. The people are hyped. They're hyped. They're ready. They're ready to hear what he has to say. I'm sure it's gonna be fascinating. I'm sure he does have a lot to say. He is gonna have a lot to say when he does finally speak. I should just take a couple moments, folks, going on 2.5 hours into the stream, just to remind folks that if you can, please support TRRS. As you know, the only way that I'm able to do this program every single day is through the continual generosity and support of the TRRS community members. So I just got to remind folks, if you enjoy this kind of commentary and this analysis, if my kind of viewpoint on this has been helpful to you in any way over the last couple of weeks, or if being part of the community has been helpful to you over the last few weeks, if you can, please subscribe. It is $5 per month. It's completely free of charge if you have an Amazon Prime account, which you can easily convert to a Twitch Prime sub, totally free. It's very helpful. Every little bit helps. Helps keep the show on the air, helps support the community.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Anon, for the gifted sub. Thank you for that. As you know, the only way that I'm able to do this is if I make the little number at the bottom of the screen. Which hand is this? This hand. Is if I make the little number go up every single day. It's my blessing and my curse to be able to do this program, but the curse part is that I have to make the little number go up on every single day. So if you can, folks, please support the show. It's the season finale. I've been going on 3 years doing this. It is the season 3 finale. 3 entire years I've been now doing this show. Not every day at first, but over the last 18 months, every single day. Going on 3 years, though. That's over 2,000 hours of
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
That's over 2,000 hours of broadcasts over the last 3 years. It's been an absolutely incredible time. I have loved every moment of it. Maybe some moments I loved less than the others. But going on to season 4. The season 4 premiere is tomorrow. Terrell Jones, thank you so much for 5 gifted subs. Very, very kind of you. Thank you for that. I really, really appreciate that. $2,000 hours of flub-free entertainment.
Good old
That's right.
Rob to talk you through all this.
2,000 hours of flub-free entertainment. And I've never misspoken once in that entire time. I think that's one of my most treasured accomplishments, is not ever making any verbal mistakes that entire time. 3 years, 2,000 hours of speaking with you. Chaos the Gardener, thank you for the 3 gifted subs. Thank you. Very kind of you. We're anti-flub and pro-slub, and the mic is never muted. And it's not a cult. I have neighbors that have a "We Stand with Israel"
Wow.
sign.
Okay, Rob. Seriously, wow.
Oh my goodness. And speak of the devil. Speak of the devil. Good Lord. Ben Bang Boom. Thank you very, very, very much for the extremely generous 10 gifted subs. Thank you, Ben, so much. I really, really appreciate that. That's very, very kind of you. Very generous. We got to get the VJ audio. That's when I say he's a close personal friend, a friend of the stream. I'm not lying. You can hear it for yourself. He's talking to me. Very informally. Very informal kind of chit-chat. I am going to reach out to him as well to have him come back for his annual visit, as I've been saying. This friend of VJ. I guess I should get it set up, right? I think February is the time. February is the annual visit. Sorry, what?
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Dust123, what video are you referring to? Tapatatog. Thanks for the tier 1 sub. Brand new community member. I really appreciate the tier 1 sub. Thank you. VJ and Sarah Jamak at both sides of the issue. Well, Envy Adams, actually, I mentioned this in the Discord server if you're there, but I have been in touch with Sarah Jamak, who has said that she wants to come on this program and said specifically, and I quote to me, "I have a whole lot to say." Or something along those lines. I have a lot to say. What did she say? Now that I said, and I quote, I want to make sure I get it right. I have so much to say, she said. I have so much to say. So that's something I'm going to work on. I'll actually DM her today, probably to try and lock down a time. But I don't want to suggest, I don't want to guarantee that she's going to come on. Perhaps she's taken a look at some of my stances that I've taken and now wants to distance herself. I hope that that's not true. but I am talking to Sarah Jamal, and I'm planning to have her on the show to talk about her side of the story and to talk about what happened, how she was kicked out of the NDP caucus for taking a morally correct and brave stance, framing the violence in Palestine as being a direct result of apartheid and settler colonialism. She was correct to do so. It was a very brave thing to do. She suffered some really serious consequences from it, and I'm looking forward to hopefully having her on the show to talk about that. I don't want to guarantee it, but she did say that she'd like to come on. Yeah, now she can just go full Stalinist. That's good. Okay, well, we're going to go back to a bit more commentary. I got another 30 minutes to go. We are 61% of the way through this hype train. A mere measly minor 8 subs away to the goal as well. So if you can, folks, I'll just remind people one more time. If you can, if you like the show, if you like the commentary, if you like being part of the community, please support the show. If possible, as I keep saying, it's I really feel genuinely very lucky that I get to do this show and earn a little income from it. Otherwise, it just wouldn't be possible. So I really appreciate every single person that supports this program. So if you can, please subscribe to TRRS. Not only can you support me in the community, we've also got some of the very best emotes on the platform. So even if you don't even want to support me, even if you don't want to support the community, you can just pay a couple bucks just to get the emotes. And you can use the emotes anywhere that you want, the tiny little images in any other Twitch chat. We've got some of the very best emotes on the entire platform. So even if you don't want anything to do with me, and believe me, I get it. You can subscribe to this program and get all the tiny little images. The exclusive Hoja emotes, the only Enver's Hoja emote that you can find on twitch.tv. There is no other place where you can get an Enver's Hoja emote. And we've got 1 minute left in this hype train.
You can count on me. You're going to have
Dr.
good old
Maggot,
Rob
thank you
to,
very much.
Talk you through all this.
2 gifted subs from Dr. Maggot. I really appreciate all the support. Dr. Maggot, thank you for that. And now a mere 6 subs away. A mere 6 subs away from the goal.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old
and there's
Rob
another from
to
Dr.
talk
Maggot.
you through all this.
Dr. Maggot, thank you. Also got us to the next level of that hype train. Oh. You ever crack your wrists?
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Good tone box. The tone box. Goodness gracious. Thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Tone box.
You can count on me. You're
very,
very,
very, very,
to,
very
talk you
kind
through
of
all
you.
This.
You dragged my sorry ass over the finish line today, Tonebox. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate everyone that supports this program. And I appreciate you as well, Anon. Thank you for a gifted sub. Thank you, Anon. That's very, very kind of you. I really appreciate all the support, folks. Genuinely, really. All the other Hoja emotes are locked away in a vault, an underground vault. I wish there was some word to describe that kind of structure.
We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Thank you, Why So Dankness, for the 420 friend coin. Thank you, Why So Dankness. That's the weed number. That is the weed number. Not many people know this.
We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Crackety Kraken, thank you for the 300 friend coin as well. Thank you, Crackety Kraken. I really appreciate that. Wonderful. More unserious numbers. Thank you for the 69 friend coin from Why So Dang. So you all kinds of unserious numbers right now. Where's your baklava? I don't have any baklava. I do have a balaclava. I was wearing it earlier and I took it off. I should get some baklava though, and I can wear my balaclava and eat my baklava at the same time. It could be a baklava. You must hit the weed pen when you see the weed number. I'm not immune from hitting the weed pen every now and then, but it's getting a little close to the end of the day for that. I got to do a bunch of shit after the end of the stream, and maybe I shouldn't be blasting dabs. Eat the baklava through the eye hole. Exactly. You got to switch it up. Keep them guessing. I am looking forward to trick-or-treating tonight. My kid is very excited about his costume. We're supposed to trick-or-treat still tonight. Yeah, keep in mind, folks. Keep your mom and dad chatters and friends in mind right now. We got a big night ahead of us over here. I wonder how his Joker makeup held up through school today. I'm interested to find out the answer to that question. I can neither confirm nor deny my blast rate tonight. Believe me, later on this evening, there's going to be some dabs going on. Is Mini Rob going as some obscure 40s cartoon voice actor? No, he's the Joker. I did his Joker makeup today. And I wasn't sure how it was going to go, and I think I did a pretty good job. He's so twisted. Of course, Rob knows how to do Joker makeup. I had to look at a tutorial just to check. It's really not that complicated, but he didn't want to be the Heath Ledger Joker nurse. I love the Joker nurse costume. That's great. Which Joker, though? I think it's more of the Ledger Joker. It's the Ledger Joker coat and makeup. But when he does the voice, he really likes the Hamill voice. So it's like he's kind of mixed a couple different inspirations there. He loves the Mark Hamill Joker voice, where he's British for some reason. He's so crazy that it just becomes British. That's the ultimate form of psychosis. When you volunteer to become British, I think. That's the ultimate twisted Joker move. You willingly become British. That's how twisted he is. I'm not teaching him at all. It's totally him. He figures all this shit out for his own. He's obsessed with voice acting and accents, and he really loves thinking about where people's accents are from and what voice they're doing. It has nothing to do with me, honestly. It's fully his own thing. No one can choose this fate, being British. It's the ultimate curse. I know, Crad Babes. We support you. We support you, Crad Babes, in spite of your Britishness. That's how inclusive this community is. We even have British people in the community. That's how committed we are to having different viewpoints and voices represented. You have to send me the Lord of the Rings movie y'all did so I can show my daughter and give you a full review. Okay, I will do that. I'll send it to you. He was curious about it. Big tent, exactly. It's a big tent. Rob is a great scary trick for little Rob would be to tell him about how fucked up Mark Hamill's brain is. I bet that would scare the hell out of little Rob. It's actually funny, Dr. Maggot, because he was like, because he knows that I'm on Twitter and social media and stuff, and he's like, can you like tell Mark Hamill something on Twitter? And I'm like, but I don't know if Mark Hamill likes me because I always yell at him about, we're always getting in fights. I keep getting in fights with Mark Hamill. He's not going to want to hear from me. He finds that a little confusing. Me and Mark's relationship is a little rocky, exactly. Imagine having me as a dad. Just imagine how fucking weird that would be. Poor guy. I wanted to take a look at this, we've been talking often about October 7th and the Al-Aqsa flood and who's a civilian and who's not a civilian, and the way that this question about settlers and civilians in a place in a nation where there's mandatory military conscription, and people say it's you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice to join the IDF. But the thing is that you do. I know it's not an easy choice. It's not a choice that I would wish on people. It's not something that I would have to make a choice on. But if you do live in Israel, you do have a choice. You can choose not to join the IDF, as many people do, such as this guy, Itamar Rubin, 19 years old from Jerusalem.
My name is Itamar Rubin. I'm 19 years old from Jerusalem, and I refuse to join the Israeli military. Up until now, I've been 47 days in the prison, and I refuse to join the army as long as it continues its barbaric practice of oppression and ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian natives.
My name is Einat. I'm 19 years old, and today I'm refusing to serve in the Israeli army. I have sat for 57 days in prison, and today I'm probably gonna go in and sit more time in prison. I'm gonna continue to stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people, and I hope we'll create together a better future.
My name is Novesh Abtai Levin. I'm 18 years old from Hod HaSharon. Till now, I sat 3 times in the military prison, in total of 35 days. Today, I'm going to refuse once again to join the Israeli army of apartheid and occupation.
Well, you can't. It's so anti-Semitic to say it's apartheid. Well, it's let's hear from actual, not even Jews in the diaspora where we live, but actual Israelis who describe it as that. Is that anti-Semitic when you're from Israel and you describe it like that? For sure, the Taylor Swift fan account. That's the ultimate example of this.
Apartheid and occupation.
My name is Shachar Schwartz. I'm 18 years old. I've sat 3 times in military prison for a total of 60 days because I refuse to cooperate with Israeli apartheid and ethnic cleansing.
So I get that it's not easy, but this whole argument that you can't just say the IDF is a legitimate target, there's conscription, kind of falls apart when you realize that despite the fact that there's conscription, you don't have to join. There are other options. And I have so much respect for these kids in Israel that are refusing to take part in this. Showing way more moral bravery and principles than every single one of our progressive political representatives, except for maybe a handful of people. I support the troops, aka people refusing to serve in the IDF. Yeah. I'm seeing on Twitter that Biden's going to cut funding from universities that have pro-Palestine rallies. When I saw Ron DeSantis proposing that as well. So good. good to see, like, the total lack of daylight between the Biden administration on this and the most arch reactionaries. Good luck with that going over well. I'm sure it's going to stop the protests. I'm sure people are going to say, well, we better cut it out. We better knock it off now. We better knock it off. Brandon's threatening the bank accounts. We can push Biden left. We love free speech, though. My sign on Saturday shall read, I support the Jewish Israelis who refuse to join the IDF. I can't find anything right now but the defunding, and if anyone has an actual, like, I don't want to spread misinformation or disinformation, if anyone has an actual, like, story about that. But there's this as well. Check this out, especially in the context of the kind of McCarthyism I was talking about before, and like women being arrested in the UK for wearing pictures of paragliders. This sounds pretty ominous. The Biden administration unveiled plans to deploy numerous cybersecurity experts to assist schools in addressing the rise of anti-Semitic and Islamophobic threats. Multiple hate-related rhetoric and online posts were made against the Jewish community at Cornell University and elsewhere. And I'm sure that's going to be applied evenly.
A war being waged a half a world away is inflaming campuses here at home.
If Hamas is worse than ISIS, then Israel is worse than Nazi Germany.
At Cooper Union College in New York City, a group of Jewish students huddled inside a locked library.
Wasn't this debunked, this whole like locked library thing as well?
Days ago.
For about roughly 10 minutes, approximately 10 minutes, they were banging on the doors of the library.
At Cornell University, Jewish students were advised to avoid the kosher dining hall out of an abundance of caution due to online threats. New York Governor Kathy Hochul.
No one should be afraid to walk from their dorm.
What are these threats?
Or their dining hall to a classroom.
I don't even want to deny that like that's happened at all.
University.
Like we said, this whole thinking Israel's activity and this nonstop effort to link Judaism and Zionism in people's minds inflames anti-Semitic trends, I think, and empowers actual anti-Semites. So I don't want to pretend that that's not going on. I think there's way more of a threat to Arab students, and there's been multiple stabbings of there was a Muslim woman that was killed at a park bench the other day. There was that little boy that was killed. But what are these, like, when you talk about these anti-Semitic threats at these universities, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about people online saying, like, I don't support Israel? Is it people online saying, like, stop the genocide? Is it saying free Palestine? Is it saying from the river to the sea? They're not really specific about what these threats are.
He said today they are afraid in a way they weren't before.
We know now that there are students in our class that simply hate us because we're Jewish.
And that is bullshit. Again, many people at these university rallies, there's Jews involved in these university rallies that are pro-Palestine, that are supporting a single secular democratic state. And making that leap, they just hate us because they're Jewish. I mean, that's just not describing the actual reality. Which again is not to say that there's not anti-Semitism or that it hasn't increased. I don't really want to downplay that. But we do need to make a distinction between what this anti-Semitism is that they're referring to. and whether they're lumping in people saying free Palestine or from the river to the sea, or just going to rallies to support Palestine, whether that counts as these incidents of anti-Semitism. Take a guess who's likely providing that surveillance technology? You guessed it, Israel. I'm not surprised by that. Ellie Shitman.
That simply hate us because we're Jewish.
Julia Jassy runs a nonprofit called Jewish on Campus.
In your view, what are some of the mistakes that some universities
are we going to hear about anyone on the other side?
Really
Let's, like, we're talking about journalistic balance. Are we just going to talk about Jewish students that feel threatened right now? Or are we also going to talk about people that are organizing these protests? Are we going to hear from them? In a balanced segment, you'd think that you'd see some effort to maybe interrogate some of these claims, right? Wouldn't that be balanced? Let's bring on some Arab students or some students that are promoting these rallies or going to these rallies. Perhaps we should bring them on in the interest of fairness and objectivity and balance, which are apparently treasured, cherished journalistic concepts. Perhaps in the effort to be balanced, we can then talk to some of those students after. We'll see. I don't know. We got half the clip left. Maybe they'll prove me wrong, and maybe they will do that. I'm thinking that they will not, though.
Time to understand that there's a difference between political discourse and the harassment, the attacks on Jewish students on campus.
The sentiments aren't confined to colleges. A Las Vegas man was just charged with one count of threatening a federal official after he left a series of anti-Semitic voicemails vowing to assault, kidnap, or murder
so that's
a
like
U.S.
a right-wing
senator. Sources tell
guy.
CBS News
it's like a right-wing
target
racist, not an Arab pro-Palestine supporter. Like, think about the ways that, like, the Biden administration is talking about, like, these pro-Palestine protests. Oh, they're basically neo-Nazis like Charlottesville. Yeah, there's these right-wing guys that are threatening, that are anti-Semites threatening Democrats. Are they big Palestine supporters? Somehow I don't think so.
Was Nevada Democrat Jackie Rosen. And in Illinois, the man suspected of murdering a 6-year-old Palestinian American boy, an alleged hate crime, made his first appearance in court today.
Jesus Christ, looks like a
The Biden administration announced today it is detailing dozens of cybersecurity experts to help schools examine anti-Semitic and Islamophobic threats. And the Departments of Justice.
So you see, like, there's the balance, right? This one Palestinian child was murdered by one of these guys that's plugged into this nonstop media stream depicting Arabs as terrorists, and a Democratic lawmaker was threatened by one of these right-wing guys that has nothing to do with Palestine. See, there's our balance. You see? Both sides are being affected. These Jewish students are being threatened by pro-Palestine marches and people saying free Palestine and stuff. This Democratic lawmaker was targeted by a right-wing anti-Semite that has nothing to do with Palestine, and a small child was murdered. You see, there's our balance. There's bad things happening on all sides.
And Homeland Security are now working with campus police departments to track hate-related rhetoric. Nora?
Nancy Cordes at the White House.
So no interview with anyone going to one of those protests. No interview with any Arab students or anyone attending those protests. Okay. You would think in the name of balance that they might be interested in doing that. If they're going to make this suggestion that these protests are inherently threatening to Jewish students, you'd think it would be a good idea to maybe talk to someone that went to one of these protests. I've talked about this before, but this is actually like a somewhat formative moment for me. 20 years ago, I moved to Montreal to go to university, and I'm from a small town in Ontario. I didn't know much about this conflict. I knew very little about it, except what I understood from mainstream media. And I was not super politically active or politically aware or engaged. I come from a small town. And one of my first year at Concordia University, just a small town boy. My first year at university, I showed up to class one day and there was a massive protest/riot directly outside the school because Benjamin Netanyahu was coming to speak at Concordia, was invited by one of these student groups to come speak at Concordia. And there was this huge protest of Palestinian supporters and Arab students that organized around that, and there was a massive crisis over it. And that was that was like my third week of university. So it's interesting how this has been going on for so long, but it's just been kind of inflamed so much recently by the latest conflicts, and it's being intensified by social media too. How many more gory details do we need to know about the attack before we can talk about the actual problem at the root of this? Well, there's no answer to that, because when we talk about the actual root of the problem, it's anti-Semitic, and it's pro-Hamas and pro-terrorism. To talk about settler colonialism, to talk about apartheid, to talk about how Israel's entire existence, which is fully subsidized by the U.S. government, is in direct contradiction of any interpretation of international law. We can't talk about any of that stuff. All we have to talk about is October 7th and the random orgy of indiscriminate violence against civilians and rapes that was going on. And that's all we can talk about. And anything that supports Palestine supports this narrative. That's how it's been over the last couple of weeks. One time I've got to talk to Aaron Mate about that, because he was directly involved in that. My turning point was on a flight from Paris to Amsterdam when I sat next to a Palestinian woman. We introduced, and she said she was Palestinian, and I started asking about the blockade. She told me about living in the West Bank and what has happened to her family's land and the checkpoints and occupation. Only took an hour and 45 minutes of time with her, and I was shook. It's amazing how when that perspective is completely hidden, is completely ignored in our media, you just speak to someone that's lived through that situation. It's like, oh, wow. What? Why haven't I heard more about this? I was educated on the topic by anti-Zionist Jews. Pretty hard for Israel to do anything about that. Well, that's why, I talked to Eli Valley last night on the Insurgents podcast. I really encourage people to listen to that. And that's one reason I really respect and admire Eli Valley, who's taken the time to speak to me about it for, I think I first spoke to him on a podcast in 2019. People like Katie Halper, people that have put themselves out there, even when it's really not popular to do. And I think it's really valuable, because if you're not really aware of that, and you just look at media and you have people saying if you want to support, do you support Jewish people or don't you? We know what happened to Jewish people in the Holocaust. Do you want to stand up for Jewish people and make sure that they're protected and safe? Well, then you got to support Israel, And if you're not exposed to any Jewish people specifically saying no, it doesn't have to be like that. There's another way. If you're not exposed to that viewpoint, you can just say yeah, of course I support Jewish people, so I support Israel, I guess. That's why what they do is very, very valuable, and I really appreciate it. Anyway, thanks again, folks. This is the season finale. This has been the season finale of TRRS Season 3. We got Season 4 coming up tomorrow, the Season 4 premiere. I really appreciate everyone who supported the show today and this week and this month and this entire season. It's been it's been quite a year for me. It's been a tumultuous season, and the fact that I have people in this community that have supported me, that have hung out with me each and every day while we do this show, I can't tell you how valuable that's been for me. To be able to come and hang out with you folks every single day, to talk about all these things with you. I hope it's been valuable for you as well. I'm not going anywhere. We got Season 4 coming up. What's the cliffhanger going to be? Shit. You can do the 24 o'clock. Anyway, really do. Seriously, I really do appreciate each and every one of you that comes and hangs out on the show and watches, listens, the chatters. You know, it means a whole lot. It means more to me than you know, that people have been supporting me and allowing me to do this show. What is this? My first time here and he's leaving. I'm so sorry. I saw that F Society showed up and I said, it's time to go. F Society Jill. That's my cue to leave. That's my cue to get out of here. So that's all. Have a nice Halloween, everybody. Have a nice Halloween. I just tried to raid Dan Simpson and it didn't seem to work. Not working. Good. Very good. I love it. I think if I signed out and signed back in, I could do it. But Marty, if you're there, can you just raid Dan Simpson? I don't know. Sometimes the shit just doesn't work. Thank you. So yeah, that's it. Thanks again, folks. It's been quite a season. Have an enjoyable night, whether if you're trick-or-treating, if you're giving out candy, if you're just hanging out, if you're watching spooky movies. I hope you have a nice evening. I will be back tomorrow. I'm going to try to have everything, all the new features and everything ready for tomorrow. I am going to give my best effort. I can't guarantee anything. I'm putting together a little clip show. We got new emotes and new stuff to do as well. Might have to be a bit more of a soft launch for some of that stuff. But I'm going to try my very best to have everything put in place for tomorrow. The season premiere, season 4 premiere tomorrow. How exciting. Season 4 extravaganza. So thank you again. Give my regards to Dan Simpson. I'll see you tomorrow, season 4. I love you, folks. Free Palestine, from the river to the sea.